Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition. Here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pot.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod. We have a great show ahead for you, including a small breakdown of the upcoming show Maul Shadow Lord, which releases on Disney Plus April 6th. We've got our friends Blake and Dan joining us this week for our second go at Bogan's Advocate, which is a bit of a game we've been playing here on the podcast for the last week now. So we're going to be diving into Attack of the Clones and explaining how that works for you in just a moment. But in the meantime, I hope you're all doing well, and let's dive into it.
Another happy landing.
Times have changed. I will show you the galaxy for what it truly is. See things from a new perspective.
Is this what our future holds? Always running.
I invite you to look more closely.
What are we dealing with?
Good question. And I offer you an opportunity.
Maul.
We have all been made to suffer. We survive, but do not live. The Emperor wants you dead. Chains can be broken.
Hang on!
And empires can be shattered.
You can call me Lord Maul. At last we will reveal more news on the podcast.
Hello, and welcome back, Blake.
Hello. Good to be back.
Good to have you back, and great to have you back.
All hail the Shadow Lord.
All hail Maul Shadow Lord, yeah. Welcome back, Dan.
Hello there.
Hello. So that was the trailer for Maul Shadow Lord, and this came out, as of this recording, this trailer actually dropped today. It's always convenient now when we do a podcast and Star Wars news drops in the morning. It's like,
oh, look at that.
You know what? That's the smell of... that's the smell of destiny.
Destiny? It's
the smell of fate.
Content.
It's the smell of content. Yes, yeah. It's the smell of new Star Wars. So yeah, you know what? I mean, I know that we've chatted about this a lot of times in the past. We're going to keep this, fairly more brief, but there's a few things like you mentioned that we could bring up. General first thoughts, though. I mean, in the past, I know. I've kind of been excited for this for a while, but I know yourself and I think Darian as well had some reservations about how this show could be handled with the villain as a primary character. So what do you think now?
Especially in animated, because then you're targeting a younger audience, but you're promoting a villain.
Yeah.
Two things don't usually really go together.
Right.
I feel like Disney in general struggles with that. Like barring, I guess, a few of the more recent movies where not even that. They take a villain and they try to make them less villainous. Like Cruella, for example.
Cruella, yeah.
Right. Whereas Maul,
kind of trying to bring some human side to them, I suppose, right?
yeah, they're trying to show them before the madness. But I don't even know if they show the whole transition. I didn't watch that movie, but I know the rough. I know where the end result is. I guess. So
Yeah.
I would say I'm more excited now than I was before. Also, just seeing it, it brings hype with it. And I had already forgotten about the fact that Maul gets this new, potentially an apprentice. Seems like that might be the relationship, but we don't really know yet.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Oh, that might be a better name.
Yeah.
And everything we saw, she does not have any tattoos, but maybe that's from early. I don't know. I would love to see them canonize the EU character.
Yeah.
Darth Talon, I think, right?
Darth Talon, yeah. And that would be interesting to see if that ends up coming about. But what are your initial thoughts, Dan, after seeing the trailer now?
I always appreciate seeing more Darth Maul.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. After we saw him make a slight cameo in the Han Solo movie, Solo Story. Right. Obviously, we didn't get a sequel to that movie, so we didn't get more Darth Maul that way. So I'll take him in animated form.
Yeah.
Fair.
That's fair.
I'm also excited about that. Because that was such a huge cliffhanger that just felt like it kind of went nowhere. Like, can you speak to if they expanded that in the comics?
No, not a whole lot. I mean,
The Maul stuff, no. They just did Kira.
Honestly, I don't believe there was any story for Maul between when we see him depart Clone Wars and when he enters Rebels, other than Solo. Other than his one appearance in Solo, there's really nothing else. So I think this show is going to be a great bridge, for the character to kind of give him that underworld that he's apparently a ruler in Solo, and where he goes from being the bottom of the barrel in terms of the power structure in Clone Wars, right? And this is something that he prophesizes a little bit.
Ended off, you mean?
Yeah, because he kind of prophesizes to Ahsoka. He's like he knows what's about to happen, and he's like he knows
Order 66.
Yeah, he knows about that, and he senses the power shift, and he knows it's crazy. Like, I think in the moment, if they did not disagree over the fact that, because even Maul knows that Anakin's being groomed, and it's like if they didn't disagree over that, I think Maul could have helped Ahsoka and the Jedi bring Palpatine to justice properly. Like, they would have actually been able to do it, but because she disagreed about Anakin, that's where it fell apart, and that's why they started fighting. And it's like, wow, that's crazy, right? But yeah, his idea as to what the galaxy could be like, he's a victim of this whole thing, just like the Jedi, but in a different way, because the Inquisitors are still hunting him too, right? And we know that from Star Wars Rebels, and they hint about that as well in this show. In the trailer, we see what's his name, Marok from Ahsoka. He shows up.
But yeah, that's the kind of the bird face.
He's the night guy. But then we see the bird face helmet guy. He was from the Tales of the Jedi Ahsoka short.
Yeah, that guy. I like his design. He's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're both like great.
That
great
old
designs.
man. I forget the term of it. Dan, you can probably help me out. What's that Renaissance? When they were getting into diseases and stuff, and then there was like really early medicine.
Like doctors.
Yeah, it has a like doctor mask.
Yeah,
it looks pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
I knew Dan was the guy to call on.
So I mean, also it's worth mentioning. I mean, okay, whoever edits these trailers, like they always do a bang on job. When they the last like number of shows for both Rebels, Bad Batch, the later seasons of Clone Wars from like season 3 or 2 onwards, like they always do such a great job editing these trailers. Like it's incredible. Like it always gets you so hyped, and it's like, man, this looks so cool. Excellent job to whoever did that. But then also, like, this show has a new visual style which we haven't seen before, and it's very slight. It's a little different than Clone Wars, but
it's airing more towards Clone Wars.
I think so. Yeah, it's definitely
stuff?
definitely leaning towards
That's
Clone Wars a bit more. But unlike Bad Batch, which was just basically an extension of the Clone Wars visually, this one is changing things up a little bit. You can kind of tell in the backgrounds.
Bad Batch was Clone Wars with more
grunge.
Yeah, more almost atmosphere cinematography to it.
Oh yeah. Well, it was just I guess an extension of the same thing. This one is, you can tell the backgrounds have sort of this watery, smoky aspect to it, almost like it's been
washed out.
Yeah, not quite Clone Wars brushstroke style, but more so as if it's been distorted. And then in the motion blur of the lightsabers as well as a lot of the lightsaber effects, like when you watch it very carefully, it has this kind of interesting distortion effect, and all of it has that style to it. So it's very interesting. And then the characters, I don't know if they're not directly out of Clone Wars, like they've been changed up ever so slightly.
The models?
Yeah, the faces. It's mostly the faces, and I think the visual language of the show is going to be slightly different. But
and that's not just due to technology.
No, I think it's intentional. It's all very intentional to kind of have this show be its own identity, which makes me wonder if maybe it's supposed to go longer than one season. I wonder if the investment is going to pay off by maybe season 2 or 3 if they keep going.
I mean, I don't think any of us expected Bad Batch to have as many seasons as it did. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And
who knows what's in store?
I mean, it would be really cool to have this show be an anthology sort of series where you do get those 1 or 2 seasons in between Clone Wars and Solo, but then there's maybe one season after that follows the events of Solo and maybe bridges until, the gap until Rebels. Like that would be really cool if maybe they had something like that. I mean, Andor did that very successfully with season 2.
That raises the question for me, what is our timeline? Like, what's the gap between Clone Wars and when we see him in Solo, and then what's the timeline between
10
Solo
years
and seeing him in Rebels?
Yeah, so there's like 10 years between Clone Wars and Solo, and then between and Solo and Kenobi take place in the same year, just to kind of gauge your timeline there, get a sense of time. And then the later part between Solo and Rebels, because he shows up in Rebels at the end of season 2. So, and Rebels season 1 is like 4 years before A New Hope, which is 19 years after Clone Wars. So that, just doing the math is like count back 3, I guess, from A New Hope. So 1870, 16, and then minus those 10 years. So we got about 6 years in there, 5 or 6 years between Solo and his time showing up in Rebels.
Okay. So there's definitely enough time for him to build an empire and it to collapse.
Yeah, because by the time
he already did it in Clone Wars in like 6 months.
Because by the time because by the time we see him in Solo, like he is ruling Crimson Dawn, like that's his thing, and it has a reputation of being this like very brutal organization,
right?
So,
and that was Solo's in.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, you guys, any more thoughts on this?
I'm curious if he's going to earn the title Old Master. That's why he brings it back.
Old Master. Dan, any more thoughts on Shadow Lord?
Are we going to see more spider legs?
Spider legs.
Darth Maul with the spider legs?
That's a Clone Wars thing. I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's got them hanging up in his closet.
Maybe how General Grievous has arms that split into 4.
Yeah.
His legs could split into 4. Then he'd have I guess I have to split into 8, so we'll all split again.
It is worth, one thing I forgot to bring up. It is worth noting they highlight the new visual design of his new lightsaber, and it's not the same as the lightsaber that we see in Rebels. Or Solo, for that matter.
In Rebels, doesn't he have a broken
Inquisitor
hilt?
In Rebels, half of it is a broken Inquisitor hilt.
Yeah.
That's right. And then, so like the last time that we saw him, I guess in Clone Wars, he was wielding half of his old staff saber as a single sword. And then I believe he also had, I think it was it this one? Or was it, he didn't have the dark saber anymore, did he? I'm trying to remember now.
That was early in Clone Wars.
He does have a staff saber though, because he fights Ahsoka with a staff saber. Oh, it is the same saber. Okay, yeah, it is the same one. So this is the same saber as the Clone Wars finale.
When did he lose the dark saber? I'm blanking on that.
You know what? I think it was in Rebels where it trades hands finally. But he
had it that long.
He had it that long, yeah. He had it as long as since he bested Pre Vizsla.
Yeah.
He had it tucked away, I guess, that entire time. There was a comic book adaptation of 4 Clone Wars episodes that he wasn't actually in.
It's interesting how Palpatine did
it kind of traded hands briefly, I believe, because they obviously took it from him, and then he got it back. And I believe it stayed that way until he made his new double-bladed lightsaber. And that's the one that we see him fight Ahsoka with. That's the one that we see in this trailer. So for anyone who hasn't seen Clone Wars, who's watching this show, like, I guess it would be a new saber to them, but maybe not so new to Clone Wars fans. And then later when we see him in Solo, that's the one that's different. That's the one with the broken Inquisitor hilt.
I thought that was Rebels.
It's the same one as in Rebels. So Rebels and Solo, he's got the same hilt.
Okay.
Yeah. So Yeah. Fun fact as well, like the half that is the new half, that's the same hilt that Asajj Ventress uses as her yellow bladed lightsaber towards the end of Clone Wars. I guess the modelers got lazy. All right. Let's dive into our next round of Bogan's Advocate, shall we?
Bogus Bogan.
All right, this week we are doing Attack of the Clones, and Bogan's Advocate, for those of you who don't know, who those maybe didn't listen to last week's episode where we did The Phantom Menace, we are trying to find the opposite feelings that we have about something that we either like or dislike. If we lean towards liking something, we've got to try and find things that we don't like about it, and if we dislike something, we have to lean towards trying to find things that we do like about it. And Bogan, just so you know, I mean, it's the one of the original terms in the original scripts that was going to be used to describe what the dark side was. But just in a side fun fact, it is also a slang term in Australia and in New Zealand to describe a person whose speech, clothing, behavior, or attitude is considered unrefined or unsophisticated, often associated with the working class background. So, who's ready to play working class background advocate?
I'm ready to find my inner Bendu.
Yeah. All right, Attack of the Clones, everybody. Let's start with you, Dan. Do you lean towards liking or disliking this movie?
The movie's okay. I remember when I saw it in the theater, I really liked it. I'm like, oh, that's so much better than Phantom Menace. But I just rewatched it today, and I was still cringing at the parts that bother me.
Okay. So you like the movie, but there's a few you found a few gripes.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right, great. What about you? What about you, Blake?
I don't like sand.
We all know that that's the best part of the movie. Created one of the best lines of all time. Yeah.
The whole love sequence, man. Holy smokes.
You're a big fan, eh?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
That set up all my love expectations in life.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. I think we all learned a lesson from that.
If I'm honest, like, I love all Star Wars, and the prequels will always have a special place in my heart. This is the one I have the most trouble with.
Okay,
so
right.
I don't know which side I should pick on this one. Because I have probably similar to Dan, opinions on both sides of the aisle.
So I lean towards liking this movie. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't really need to think of a reason. I mean, I just like it. But yeah, I can see where it come from. Out of the three prequels, it is my least favorite of the prequels, and I guess you'll find out why. But generally speaking, though, I do love this movie. I have a lot of great memories attached to it. This was one of the movies that I actually had action figures for, like in a large quantity of. This was a period of time where I would come home from school, and my dad had actually gone out and bought like a ton of these things, and there was I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks. It was almost every day, and I would come home and there would be a new action figure sitting on my bed.
Oh wow!
And they were all from Attack of the Clones. This was around 2002, 2003. Yeah, and it was a special brief moment in time that I have a fond memory attached to this movie because of that. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, the music was always, I mean, the music is great in all the Star Wars movies, but
true.
It was, I mean, it feels like one of the longest ones. It was also when a lot of games were still very different on every single console or handheld, depending on what you're playing with.
A lot of good games did come out around this.
Yeah, and
like the original Xbox Star Wars Clone Wars game was pretty sweet.
Right.
Fly the laddies.
My favorite lightsaber hilt of all time is the Anakin Episode 2.
Right, yeah.
This is the one I have a replica of. It's also
moving on from the games. We didn't mention Bounty Hunter.
Oh yeah, Bounty Hunter. Yeah. My first Game Boy game ever was Attack of the Clones on Game Boy Advance, and then following that was the new Droid Army, a fantastic Game Boy game if you haven't played it.
I believe the first Battlefront came out after Attack of the Clones, before Revenge of the Sith.
Yes, 2004. It was like 2 years later or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like kind of in that time period, right? But yeah, I don't know. I just like specifically Attack of the Clones. I had a lot of good memories surrounding that movie.
There's a lot of cool designs.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of great new world building, and I mean, it was
super battle droids.
First time we saw Hayden in the character.
So the last time we saw B1 battle droids that weren't annoying.
Yeah, the first time we saw Obi-Wan with the mullet.
That's right.
We got to meet Dexter Jester, Kirk's favorite place to hang out.
Don't remind me.
There's
about Jawa juice, and apparently Jawas are known outside Tatooine for some reason.
People finally got their answer as to what the Clone Wars was, and who the clones were, and who they were based on, and we got some more history into the Fett lineage. And a lot of other things. And Christopher Lee made his debut as the infamous villain. And a lot of cool stuff came out of this movie. But what did we not like about it? What are our Bogan's advocate opinions? Maybe we'll start with you.
Oh, where do I start?
Let me start with you, Dan. Yeah. What's your number one? We'll keep going around until we're all out.
Well, my biggest problem with the movie, and I hate to dump on Hayden Christensen because the fandom has done that, and I feel bad for the guy, but man, they didn't do his character any favors in this movie. Obi-Wan won't let me do anything. he's like such a whiny bitch throughout like most of the movie. And then he comes off creepy. He's like just staring and rubbing on Padme and just like, I dream about you every night. I can't stop thinking about our kiss. And it's just like,
it torments me.
And it's not his fault, it's George Lucas's fault.
It's George's fault. It was his dream.
But it's just like, it just comes off so creepy, and like, it didn't bother me as much when I first saw it, but like rewatching it today, I was just like, oh man. And then the sand speech is like terrible. And it's like, yeah. And then like, I remember the thing that really bothered me when I first saw it was like, dude, your mom is being a slave and you're like you're spending, I know you have to go through Padawan training and all this, but like, wouldn't that be your highest priority is to go free your mom? Like,
that would make
so that always bothered me.
Yeah.
And then, so in rewatching it, like the first 20 minutes drag so long. Like that chase scene where he's chasing the bounty hunter, like through Coruscant, like it goes so, like, I feel like it's a lot longer than it needed to be. Like, through the, when he's like riding in the car and driving through and stuff, it's like, it's almost like 10 minutes long. Like, and in the first 20, 25 minutes, it's like you have the opening scene where Queen Amidala lands on like Coruscant, and then like there's the assassination attempt, and then you have a brief council scene, and then it's the car chase, and that's like the first 20 minutes of the movie. Like not a lot
it's like by the
happens in those 20 minutes.
By the time you get to the club and the guy's like, you want to buy some death sticks? I'm like, please.
Something new happened, but
So, so if you were to rank it with other low altitude vehicle chases, like the pod race and the Vespa chase, maybe the Corellia chase in Solo, like where would it fit?
Like, you remember how we last talked about how the pod race went too long? Like this was that part of this movie was the pod race. Like yeah, it's just.
So you're not a fan of low altitude vehicle chases.
I think the pod race might have been more exciting, but.
Speeder, yeah, we got the Return of the Jedi chase.
Yeah, but those weren't that long. Like that was like a 5-minute scene, if that. Like, and that was like a good length. Like only because they couldn't do it that long.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
The technology, and I feel like because they had like, we could do anything now. It's like, yeah, but you need to edit yourself. Like you don't need to go super long in these chases.
I do wonder if a lot of the issues that you're speaking to and myself have with this movie come from a lot of the adjustments that they had to do based on the fact that it was so digital.
Yeah, like I mean, obviously when you see the CG in the movie, it's a little dated. Like there's some comping issues I saw, and like Yoda's looking a little rough, the fully CG Yoda. But I'm like, for its time, like it's not terrible. There's a lot of other movies that aged a lot worse. But like another thing that bothered me was like I loved Christopher Count Dooku.
Christopher Lee.
Mm-hmm. Christopher Lee's character, and I love seeing Christopher Lee in this movie. But that Yoda Christopher Lee Count Dooku battle where like they start off just throwing things at each other very slowly.
Yeah.
Here, I'm gonna drag this at you. Oh, okay, I'm gonna drag this box at you, and it's just like, why? Why are you guys just standing there throwing things at each other?
Because they're trying to show how strong they were in the Force. I mean, that part's arguably better than two old people hopping around like they just took like Adderall or something. I feel like that Dooku Digi-Double looks pretty rough too.
Oh yeah. The head. Yeah. Blake, what about you? What's on your mind?
Well, I feel like Dan just laid it out on the table, but. The whole first half of the movie for me is always a challenge. I would argue, I like the stuff on Kamino, and I like the Tatooine. Once they land on Tatooine, I kind of like that segment.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I would say probably that point forward I enjoy, but everything before that, from everything on Coruscant.
So everything leading up through to the end of Naboo, where he gives his sand speech.
Yeah,
and
like I could start the movie there, and I would enjoy it more. That first half is rough, and I know what George was trying to do. He was trying to make it like a PI movie,
right? Yeah.
Like a noir
like a
film,
detective style.
And even in this movie, there's even it's in the next film, in Revenge of the Sith. There's like some noir scenes as well. That's what I'm thinking of. But yeah, he was trying to do a detective film, but I just feel like he just didn't quite get it there.
Yeah,
and instead it just feels very
bit of a slow burn.
And long and not that interesting.
I totally see where you're coming from, like both of you guys. Like I've always felt that the beginning half has never felt quite up to pace as the later half. A lot of movies are like that though, you know, when you kind of factor in the setup and then towards the end you get your plot kind of coming together and everything. But I do think, at least for the Star Wars space, it is kind of a one of a kind in that sense, where it tries to do this build up and it is a longer movie in the franchise. So I believe it is the longest one, behind or maybe just ahead of The Last Jedi. I think it's like
Last Jedi was the longest.
Yeah, the runtime I think it's definitely up there. Like it's towards the top. And the dialogue's not perfect.
That's putting it lightly.
Yeah. I mean, I've always tried to turn a blind eye to that, but like, man, when I watch other movies and then I go back to the
this is what quality looks like.
I'm like, oh man, like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
like, there's some rough moments.
Hard to sit through at times. Yeah.
Yeah, it just almost needs a bit of refining, you know? Like,
yeah, and like the problem is a lot of this movie was meant to be very dramatized, like a real drama movie, right? Like it's about the relationship of Anakin and Padme. It's like this forbidden love, and then there's this really slow-paced noir story going on, and they're all great concepts. But George is just not an actor's director,
and he said that himself too.
Yes, and he's a technical person. That's why he was able to make A New Hope when he did, because he was able to like mentally figure out how to do all that stuff and get the right people and understand it. But when it comes to actually working with the actors, that's not his strong suit. Yeah, and it really shows here.
It was also one of the first productions it was I believe the first production to fully use digital camera, and
it was, yeah.
Also
that's why
as much blue screen as they did.
That's why I'm wondering if that also had an effect on some of this, because they're figuring out digital filmmaking as we're going, but then they're also, because of that, there's some additional things that I learned recently that I will share in a moment. But I'm wondering if they had to like reframe and adjust stuff, because they got like, okay, we got to make sure we can do this in the computer afterwards, right? Because they were figuring out all that tracking stuff and everything too. Something that I didn't learn until recently is that the generators that they needed to run these digital cameras were so loud that they had to redub all the audio in the entire movie.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I saw that too.
It was like 60 or 80% or something had to be.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah. That's a lot, right? Like when you're redubbing, and as an actor, it's like the dialogue performs that you're giving in that scene in the moment. Either you're trying to replicate it later when you're probably not in that headspace, or
your timing might be off, or you're not doing the same actions.
Yeah, or it's a challenge to maybe get into that headspace. Like everyone's like, actors have this, there's such a wide range of actors out there, and like what their needs are to get into character.
It's actually a great point. It helps explain a lot, like with how bad the dialogue is. It's like, if you're sitting in a booth instead of like on the set, like doing the motions, it's just like, it's not the same.
Yeah, they can make a huge difference.
Right.
So it could be as simple then as Hayden Christensen was having a bad day, and now all of his lines sound like he's a whiny bitch.
Hayden, you gotta just make it more exciting.
George, you're holding me back.
No, you won't let me do anything.
Make it more intense. Make it more intense. All we want is just like, he's holding you back. Tell him. Throw that branch over there and just tell him. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the story goes, like I've always appreciated this story. I think what I would have, I think one of my Bogans, I guess, is kind of more along the opinion that I'm not a fan of the detective angle.
Yeah,
and I would have preferred a lot more from seeing the villain side of the story in this endeavor. And
right, instead they hid that to make it the reveal.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know if the reveal was quite the payoff that everyone really cared for. It's not like you're watching The Glass Onion or Knives Out and being like, oh wow, like there's a mind-blowing kind of ending. And so therefore it's like, well, the buildup was really for not much of a reaction from the audience, and therefore the surprise, if you will, is not
I mean, the
not a
surprise
payoff.
is the title of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think the surprise also being
It's like calling
it's for
Empire
the
Strikes
characters.
Back, Darth Vader was Luke's dad.
I think the surprise being like, oh, this guy that we've been talking about who's been leading half the Republic away politically is also a Sith Lord and a villain. Like
Right.
that was like
Again,
one of the surprises.
that should have been a huge twist, especially if he was still like in the Jedi. I think would have been cool.
Mm-hmm.
And if we had met him and he was important in the Phantom Menace.
Yeah,
that would have helped a lot.
See, that's why one of my Bogans was for Phantom Menace was like it would have been really cool and useful to see Count Dooku as a young Jedi, right?
Yeah.
Because then you do hear about this character
It'd be cool
for
to see.
the movie, and you're like, oh, I know who that is, and
Yeah,
he's
and
Qui-Gon's master, and I have a
exactly.
emotional connection to who this guy is. He was a nice guy.
Which is why a lot of this is just an online fan theory that the Count Dooku character was brought in later. Like he wasn't planned in Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
There's also, I think, partially this then branched off into then who was there before. Oh, Jar Jar was going to be the master villain.
No, I would believe that George probably only thought of the details of his character kind of later.
Once he
but
got to that point, which is too bad because if it could have been so easy as just Qui-Gon approaches his former master because he wants his opinion on before he sees the council about this situation. It could have been that easy.
Yeah.
Before he brings Anakin in.
It is also the first time in the release of these movies that audiences really got a glimpse at the politics behind the war, because it's only in that last scene that you realize this war is being orchestrated. And people didn't know that before. Like people always thought, oh, a big war happened. They just didn't know why. But we know the end result. Like we know that there's a rebellion fighting an empire. We know that the empire rose up from the ashes of a republic that existed before.
Yeah.
But they didn't know the little key there was like, oh, it was planned by the guy who's running the empire that this war happened. And that was like a big reveal at the time when this movie came out. And
what's funny is that's actually reminding me that before the Clone Wars show fixed a lot of these issues, a common gripe was this was a pointless war because it's mindless machines against like machine created people.
Yeah, and it's I guess it doesn't sound all that exciting when you put it like that, but it's certainly
basically who can run their printing press the fastest.
right. Growing people or growing droids, right? Yeah, there ends up being a lot more to that, of course. As we know from, like you say, from watching
that
Clone Wars.
A lot.
It's like,
I know that when I think it was after Clone Wars, but even around Revenge of the Sith time, this always became like I guess a philosophical question, like what's the point?
Yeah,
but. The Clone Wars expanded a lot, which helped and gave the clones more personalities, which made a huge difference.
They also really approached Clone Wars with, here's a story arc about the finances situation. Like, here's what the Republic is going through financially. This is why we can't have more troops, like stuff like that, right? It's like putting limitations on the ability to fight the war was part of explaining what the war was like. And I feel like that was a very important part of that show, which really did Attack of the Clones almost a big favor, because when you do watch those Senate scenes in Attack of the Clones, you think to yourself, this is a republic that's almost galaxy wide, and like they must have all the money in the universe, to be able to like fund the efforts, right? But
taxes.
Yeah. So it was just getting a sense of weight to the opposition, and seeing in the Clone Wars, seeing Dooku drive his Confederacy meetings. You only see it like once or twice, but it's like, oh yeah, there's actually a lot of senators there, you know, and like, oh, these are all the people that are, you know, this way politically minded, and they still have friends in the Republic that are like senators for those worlds.
That was in Clone Wars you're talking.
Yeah, in Clone Wars, yeah. But
that would have been helpful to see that in one of these movies.
It kind of retroactively made Attack of the Clones a better movie.
It did, yeah.
Because
it's almost like he had too much story to tell, like, and he couldn't fit it all into the movies. So it's like, it definitely helps make those movies better if you watch those. And but like, you know, the mass majority of the
100%
film viewing audience like isn't going to do that,
right?
Except for the Star Wars fans.
Yeah, exactly.
Very true.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think any other Bogans really come to mind. I mean, I would probably say, yeah. You know what? Like, I don't know. I mean, I've never disliked that. Have you disliked that? Like seeing Boba as a kid?
Yeah, like the kid's annoying. Like he doesn't do anything.
Daniel Logan.
And he's sitting in behind his dad, and he's like, fire at him, fire dad, yeah, get him, dad. And it's just like, it's like, okay, calm down, kid.
Dad, look. Yeah. Okay. I mean, he doesn't have like the best dialogue.
See, I was older when I saw it, though. Yeah. You guys were kids.
I never really thought of it that way. I never really thought about that way. No, there's no way I identified with that kind of behavior, but like,
yeah, I think I do know a huge gripe from a lot of people who grew up with the original trilogy is that they changed Boba into a clone.
Yeah.
It's like, but the other way to look at it was like, it was never told that he wasn't, you know,
except for the
I mean, he's not a full clone because he they didn't do the conditioning on him and they didn't alter his.
Yeah, he's like an unaltered replica of Django, right? Yeah. But like, I don't know. His
name should be Django too.
The EU had some weird concepts, and they misdelivered a little bit sometimes with, I guess, you know, what comes later in the storytelling. It's like, okay, there's some things that don't line up there, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never been opposed to that.
I know that scene where he's holding his dad's head, you know, in the helmet. Like, it's supposed to be like upsetting and sad, but I laugh every time I see that scene.
I'm
like waiting for his dad's head to like slide out.
That's so cruel.
I think there's a deleted scene around that moment.
Something drops out.
It's still in there.
Yeah, it's still in there. No, you see in the when the helmet lands on the sand, you see something in the shadow. You see the head fly out of the helmet.
Do you?
Yeah, in the shadow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the shadow. Yeah, if you watch that scene very carefully, you see it fly out.
Goodness.
It would be really funny.
Okay.
It would be really funny though if something like trickled out. You know, some little like droplets of blood or something.
Oh my goodness. I don't think there is blood in this movie.
That's another thing I was gonna say. Good memory surrounding this movie was I grew up with like the Jedi Quest series and a series called Boba Fett. Both of those series were, at least in North America, released under the Scholastic publisher. So elsewhere in the world, it may have been released under a different publisher. But the Boba Fett series was about 6 books or 5 books, and it was bridging the gap after Attack of the Clones until basically through Clone Wars and up until the point that Boba really kind of starts to become his own person. The Jedi Quest series was bridging the gap between episode 1 and 2, and that was the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan in that time period. And the Jedi Quest was an extension of the Jedi Apprentice series, which was a big, long Obi-Wan Qui-Gon book series that takes place before Phantom Menace, and then later they did The Last of the Jedi, which was like after episode 3 with Obi-Wan. But yeah, Jedi Quest and Boba Fett remain some favorites of mine, and the Boba Fett series was so good. Like, they brought in some really solid character crossovers. Dooku was in the series. Aura Singh was in the series. That's a relationship that they did canonize in the Clone Wars animated show. I believe Bosk showed up, and I think Dirge was a big part of one of the books as well.
Oh, interesting. Like,
yeah,
Dirge,
worm guy? The worm guy, yeah, from the 2D Gandhi series.
That's cool.
Yeah, so there was a bunch of really cool stuff that happened in those books, and the whole thing is basically in the event of Jango's death, he has left a diary for Boba to essentially experience or read through. And it's a diary that kind of happens or turns on whenever he puts the helmet on or something like that. There's like different logs that kind of, I guess, get explained to him or read to him. And it's about his time trying to survive as a kid with no dad, no family. He doesn't necessarily have he's an enemy to the Jedi now, right? Because he hates Mace Windu. Like, that was a part of the books as well. And then he also feels like an outsider because everyone's got his face, you know, in the war.
Yeah, that's
a lot of the propaganda material. It's his face. It's his dad's face. Like, he's like emotionally destroyed over this event, right? And then there's Count Dooku, who's also showing up at one point in like the second book or something. And it's like,
I think that actually does bring up, maybe not a current gripe, but I know was a gripe that I've heard a lot, is that George in Attack of the Clones, for really no real reason, took this random character that people loved, Boba Fett, and just decided, let's make 1 million of them.
Let's make 10 million
of that specific guy. Like, there's gonna be anyone in the galaxy, but it's gotta be that guy.
Yeah. Anyway, great book series. So if you're looking to experience some good Boba Fett, young Boba Fett, that's the one.
Before he trains under Cad Bane.
And after he says, Dad, look! Fire, Dad, fire! Kill him! Dan's favorite line.
Totally.
Yeah. What else? What else? You guys can think of one more Bogan.
A Bogan.
I do have a fun fact.
Go for it.
My brother's in the movie.
Oh. What?
He's an extra in the scene when Anakin stops the ship that has the bounty hunter, and she crashes into a street, and there's a bunch of onlookers like, oh, what's going on? He's in the background.
Holy what?
And you see his face and everything.
You've never mentioned this at all.
Cool, yeah.
What the heck? Are you that ashamed of the movie?
No. You were in that one? Oh.
I was in Star Wars. What? No way. Yeah, it was Attack of the Clones.
That's not even Star Wars.
It's like, me, what? Brother.
Yeah. So what? Okay. So he was like a citizen in Coruscant then.
Yeah. His a childhood friend of ours, like was on the production team, and my brother went to go visit him on set. Like,
they just let him on set with a costume.
No, it was actually I think he was at ILM, and like they needed to shoot extras to comp into the scene, so he had him come in and like film him in front of a green screen. And
dude, where were you in this endeavor? Like what the heck?
I was like, I think when that was happening, I was like, I was living like, because he was in, where was I? I was like somewhere else, some other studio.
Yeah. Wow,
yeah, living in a different city and stuff. So yeah, I didn't get to go visit because where's ILM? Like in San Francisco?
Yeah.
I was in LA. I was in LA at the time, so that's what it was.
But you're only a couple hours away, dude. Like, hey, if you drive 4 hours, you get to be in Star Wars.
He didn't get the call.
Didn't get the call. Oh my goodness, dude. Yeah, you only need to take like a 30-minute flight, is it? Or like a 4-hour drive?
You're missing the important part here, and that's the other call. The call where Dan asked his brother to come on the podcast.
That'd be, maybe he would. I'll talk. Like, do you want to talk about your 5 minutes?
Yeah, it'd be fun. It's been long enough that.
I mean, if he remembers his time, like, I mean.
Oh, I'm sure he might have stories.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, ask him. Yeah, well, yeah, that'd be such a random fun.
Or if anything, I could have him record like a voice recording if he doesn't want to come on and just tell his story, and then.
I wonder if he played like GameCube with Hayden Christensen in his tent or something.
You've got a pretty high bar. You're filming like background shots.
Yeah. I mean,
he's right. Sand does get everywhere.
Yeah,
of course.
Dry.
I want to know what he thought when he like got to set and like met some of these people. I don't know how closely he followed the news.
I don't think he met anybody. I think it was just all like in green screen, like at the ILM.
I wonder if he's one of the guys that walk by when Obi-Wan's like scolding him, going like, "This weapon is your life." Like your brother in the background, like, "That's right."
I'll send you a screen grab later. I'm like, hey, here he is.
Yeah. Definitely do that. That's awesome. All right. Well,
you didn't say your Bogan yet.
Oh yeah, what's your Bogan?
How about you?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
No, I think I'm done. I think I'm
Bogans?
good. I don't think I have any other Bogans.
How do you feel about them, Anakin and Padme taking the bus to Naboo?
Taking public transport?
Yeah.
I've never felt ill of that. No, I mean, like, it's kind of it makes sense.
I
like,
thought it was a cool thing. You never really see that.
Yeah, you never really see
more
that.
animated, but I don't know if we.
That's why I didn't bring it up. I always thought that was good.
I just want to bring it up because I thought it was a neat thing to point out.
Yeah, so we're trying to be skeptical here. That's the problem.
Oh, I have another gripe. I wish they had kept in the extended Naboo shots. I feel like that would have helped.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was an entire sequence that was cut with her family, right?
Yeah, Padme's family. To me, that's more important than the nonsense of him like floating fruit towards her.
I don't know if I've ever seen that.
Yeah, it's in the deleted. Man, it's actually a really big sequence. Yeah, you meet her sister, you meet her parents.
Yeah, cut out 5 minutes of the chase scene and put that.
That would have been a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Actually,
cut out the entire entire section where he loses her and goes in the wrong direction.
You know, and some of the discussions in there actually was great character building too. Like,
I don't know why George
stuff.
cut it. VFX budget? I don't know.
I think it was just runtime because the movie's already really long, so it was probably like
he's too obsessed with his hot rods.
Yeah,
couldn't cut the reins.
Want to keep the car in there.
You know what they really needed to add was more Dexter's Diners donuts.
Oh yeah.
It's been a reoccurring location.
That's where it's at, Dex's Diner. All right. Any last minute bogans for you, Blake?
What do you think Jawa juice tastes like?
Grape. It's just grape juice.
Grape juice with sand.
Nice and gritty,
Nice
just
and
the way we
gritty,
like
yeah.
it.
Exactly.
One time sand's not dry.
Let's Jawa that up a little bit.
Oh my goodness. Next time I'm going to bring some sand, dump it in your drink.
Call it Jawa juice. Yeah. Houdini. All right, guys. Thanks so much for dropping in this week, and we will catch you in the next one.
It's always a pleasure. We'll see you out there. Keep flying.
All right. Thank you so much to our audience for tuning in this week. Bit of a shorter one, actually. A bit more of an average size one now, but yeah, lots of great stuff this week. Go and check out the trailer to Maul Shadow Lord that comes out in April this year, so not too long until we have a new weekly after show popping up on Star Wars Escape Pod. So I'm gonna have to start designing a new podcast cover to have for those episodes. Don't forget to check out the links in the description box. We've got links to Darian's Mandarian YouTube channel. We've got links to Kirk's Designed by Kirk YouTube channel. And Orbit Key, our friends making a whole new Disney lineup on their site, key organizers and more. Lots of stuff down there, so check that out. You can subscribe to us on any podcast platform in the galaxy. We'll see you in the next episode, and may the Force be with you.